Champagne's for the ones who belong here, not for you. The lead flight attendant sneers, her eyes skimming past Julie Flores as she pours champagne for the suited men around her in first class. Julie, a black tech CEO, grips her tablet. Her pitch to revolutionize an industry mere hours away. Yet, on this flight she's invisible, her requests ignored, her presence dismissed with a glance that stings like a slap. The attendant's half-full bottle glints mockingly, a symbol of exclusion in a space where Julie's earned her seat. But Julie isn't one to shrink. With a single bold move, she sets off a firestorm that threatens an airline's foundation and echoes far beyond. What does she do to turn humiliation into power? Can her defiance rewrite the rules? Subscribe to uncover the battle that's just begun, share where you're listening from, and join us for a story of justice unleashed. The hum of San Francisco. International Airport pulsed around Julie Flores as she navigated the bustling terminal, her polished Oxfords clicking against the polished floor. At 27, she carried the weight of her ambitions with a grace honed by years of defying expectations. As the CEO of NextGen Analytics, a startup revolutionizing data analytics for tech giants, Julie was en route to New York for a pivotal meeting with investors who could propel her company to new heights. Her tailored gray suit hugged her frame, and her natural curls were swept into a sleek bun, a style she'd perfected to command respect in boardrooms where she was often the only black woman present. October sunlight streamed through the terminal's glass walls, casting long shadows as Julie approached the gate for Horizon Airways Flight 1423. Her first-class boarding pass, a rare indulgence justified by the high-stakes pitch awaiting her, felt like a small victory, a tangible marker of her ascent from an Oakland scholarship kid to a tech trailblazer. She handed the pass to the gate agent, who scanned it with a perfunctory nod. "Enjoy your flight, Ms. Flores," the agent said, barely glancing up. Julie offered a tight smile, accustomed to the subtle dismissals that punctuated her professional life. Stepping onto the jetway, Julie felt the familiar thrill of transition, a liminal space between her relentless work in San Francisco and the opportunity awaiting in New York. The first-class cabin of the Boeing 737 greeted her with plush leather seats and the faint scent of citrus from pre-flight preparations. She settled into seat 3A, a window seat offering a view of the tarmac's organized chaos. Her carry-on, a sleek black roller bag, fit neatly overhead, and she pulled out her tablet to review her pitch deck one last time. The numbers were airtight. The vision bold. NextGen Analytics could redefine how companies leveraged data, if only the investors could see past their biases. As passengers filed in, Julie observed the cabin's demographic, mostly white men in crisp suits, their briefcases, and egos vying for space. A few women, also white, dotted the rows, their laptops already open. Julie was used to being the anomaly in such spaces. Her presence often met with curious glances or unspoken assumptions. She brushed it off, her focus laser-sharp on the meeting ahead. Victor Marshall, the lead investor, had dismissed her in their last encounter, calling her startup overly ambitious with a tone that implied she didn't belong at the table. Today, she'd prove him wrong. The lead flight attendant, a woman whose name tag read Tiffany, moved through the cabin with practiced efficiency. Her blonde hair was pulled into a severe bun, and her smile, though polished, seemed to falter at certain times. Julie watched as Tiffany offered champagne to a businessman across the aisle, her voice warm and inviting. "Champagne, sir? Or perhaps orange juice?" The man, engrossed in his phone, grunted, "Champagne," and Tiffany poured with a flourish, the flute sparkling under the cabin lights. She moved methodically, serving each passenger with a deference that bordered on performative, until she reached Julie's row. Tiffany's eyes flicked over Julie, a fleeting glance that carried a weight Julie recognized instantly. It was the look of someone deciding in a split second that she didn't belong. Without a word, Tiffany turned to the passenger beside Julie, a middle-aged white man in a navy blazer. "Champagne, sir?" she asked, her tone syrupy. He nodded and she poured, her movements deliberate. Then, as if Julie were invisible, Tiffany moved to the next row. Julie's chest tightened, not with surprise, but with the weary familiarity of being overlooked. She'd faced this before, in classrooms, boardrooms, even restaurants where her reservation was lost until she produced proof. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. "You'll always have to be twice as good, Jules, to get half the respect." She pressed the call button, its soft chime cutting through the cabin's murmur. Tiffany appeared moments later, her smile thinner now, her eyes cold. "Yes?" she asked, her tone clipped. "I'd like a glass of champagne, please," Julie said, her voice steady but firm, betraying none of the heat rising in her throat. Tiffany's lips pursed. "I'm sorry. We're out of champagne," she replied, her gaze darting to the galley where a half-full bottle sat plainly in view. Julie's eyes narrowed, locking onto the bottle. "I see it right there," she said, her words measured, but pointed. Tiffany's smile vanished. "I'll check," she said curtly, turning away before Julie could respond. The dismissal was blatant, a microaggression wrapped in plausible deniability. Julie felt the eyes of the man beside her, who shifted uncomfortably, pretending to focus on his magazine. She took a deep breath, channeling her indignation into action. Opening her phone's notes app, Julie began typing. October 12th, 2023. Horizon Airways Flight 1423, Seat 3A. Lead flight attendant, Tiffany, skipped me for pre-flight champagne service despite serving others, claimed out of champagne, despite a visible bottle. Her fingers moved swiftly, documenting every detail with the precision of someone who'd learned early that evidence was power. She glanced at the galley again, where Tiffany now chatted with another attendant, her laughter sharp and exclusionary. The cabin doors closed, and the safety demonstration began, but Julie's mind was elsewhere. This wasn't just about a glass of champagne. It was about the message it carried. You don't belong here. She'd spent her life proving otherwise, from coding her first app at 16 to securing venture capital for next-gen analytics at 25. She wouldn't let this slide. As the plane taxied, Julie opened her messaging app and found Sarah Sanchez's contact. Sarah, a tech industry veteran and Horizon Airways board member, had been Julie's mentor since her Stanford days, guiding her through the labyrinth of Silicon Valley's biases. "Sarah, I'm on Horizon Flight 1423. Blatant discrimination from the lead attendant. Documenting everything, need your advice when I land." She hit send, her pulse quickening with resolve. The plane lifted off, the San Francisco skyline shrinking below. Julie leaned back, her tablet forgotten, her mind racing with the implications of what she'd just experienced. This wasn't just personal, it was systemic, a reflection of the barriers she'd fought her entire career. The investors in New York would see her pitch, but they'd also see her strength. And Horizon Airways? They were about to learn that Julie Flores didn't just sit quietly when faced with injustice. As the seatbelt sign dimmed, Julie glanced out the window, the clouds a canvas of possibility. She wasn't just a passenger on this flight. She was a force. And this spark of defiance would ignite something far greater than a single complaint. The fight for equity had begun, and Julie was ready to lead it. The cabin of Horizon Airways Flight 1423 hummed with the steady drone of engines, a cocoon of artificial calm at 35,000 feet. Julie Flores sat in seat 3A, her tablet dormant on the tray table, its screen reflecting the soft glow of the overhead lights. The sting of Tiffany's dismissal lingered, but Julie's mind was a whirlwind of strategy, her indignation sharpening into resolve. She wasn't just a passenger wronged. She was a CEO, a tactician, and a woman who'd learned to turn slights into leverage. The half-full champagne bottle in the galley mocked her from afar, a silent testament to the bias she'd just endured. She wouldn't let it define her. Julie unlocked her phone, her fingers steady despite the pulse of anger in her veins. She opened the camera app, switching to video mode, and subtly angled the lens toward Tiffany, who was now serving orange. juice to a passenger 2 rows ahead with an exaggerated smile. The footage captured the flight attendant's deliberate warmth, her voice lilting as she chatted with a white businessman about the weather in New York. Then, as Tiffany passed Julie's row again, the camera caught her glance. A fleeting, dismissive flicker before she moved on without a word. Julie stopped recording, the 30-second clip a damning snapshot of disparity. She opened her email app, her heart pounding with the audacity of what she was about to do. The recipient line included Victor Marshall, the investor whose skepticism had left a bitter taste during their last meeting. She added a handful of trusted contacts: Sarah Sanchez, her mentor; Priya Patel, a tech journalist with a knack for exposing corporate missteps; and a few allies from Next Gen Analytics' advisory board. The subject line read, "Discrimination on Horizon Airways Flight 1423. In the body, Julie wrote with surgical precision, "This is the reality I face even in first class. I'm still waiting for champagne and respect." She attached the video, hit send, and leaned back, the weight of her actions settling like a stone. The man beside her, Michael Chen, glanced over, his dark eyes catching the glow of her screen. "You're documenting this, aren't you?" he asked quietly, his voice carrying a mix of admiration and concern. He'd introduced himself earlier, a fintech entrepreneur with a dry wit and a sharp eye for detail. "I am," Julie replied, her tone low but firm. "This isn't just about me, it's about every person who's been made to feel invisible." Michael nodded, his expression somber. "I saw how she skipped you, it was blatant. If you need a witness, I'm in." His offer was a lifeline, a reminder that allies could emerge in unexpected places. Julie gave him a grateful nod, her mind already racing to the next step. Her phone vibrated, a notification from Sarah Sanchez. "Got your message? This is unacceptable. I'm contacting the board now. Call me when you land." Julie's lips curved into a faint smile. Sarah's influence as a Horizon board member was a trump card, one she'd play carefully. But it was the next notification that startled her. A call from Victor Marshall, his name flashing insistently on the screen. She hesitated, then accepted, slipping in her earbuds to keep the conversation private. "Julie, I just saw your email." Victor's voice crackled, through his usual arrogance replaced by a nervous edge. "I'm appalled by what I saw in that video. I owe you an apology, not just for this, but for how I treated you in our last meeting. I misjudged you and I'm sorry. Can we discuss your pitch when you land? I want to make this right." Julie's jaw tightened. Victor's sudden contrition was convenient, likely spurred by the fear of being associated with a brewing scandal. "I appreciate the call, Victor," she said, her voice cool and measured. "But this isn't about my pitch right now. It's about being treated as less than because of my skin. We'll talk business later, after Horizon addresses this." She ended the call, her pulse quickening with the power of her defiance. Run. Cabin lights dimmed slightly as the flight attendants began the in-flight service. Tiffany moved through the aisle, her tray laden with drinks, her smile reserved for everyone but Julie. The pattern continued, hot towels handed to every passenger except her, a request for water ignored until Michael pointedly intervened. "I believe Ms. Flores asked for water," he said, his tone sharp enough to make Tiffany flinch. She returned with a plastic cup, placing it on Julie's tray with a curt nod before hurrying away. Julie added the incident to her notes, her documentation growing into a meticulous record of slights. She glanced at her phone again, where notifications were piling up. Priya Patel had replied, "This is explosive, Julie. Can I run this with your permission?" A quick check of social media revealed the video was already circulating, shared by a colleague with the hashtag #DarsJusticeForJulie. Comments flooded in, some from strangers, others from tech peers, their outrage amplifying her voice. "Horizon Airways needs to answer for this," one tweet read. "Unacceptable in 2023, said another. The spark she'd ignited was catching fire. As the plane began its descent into JFK, Julie felt a shift within her. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about the countless others who'd faced similar indignities in silence. She typed a quick reply to Priya. "Go ahead. Make it public." The decision felt like a declaration of war, not just against Tiffany, but against a system that allowed such behavior to persist unchecked. Michael leaned over, his voice low. "You're starting something big here, Julie. That video, it's going to make waves." "I hope so," she replied, her eyes fixed on the approaching New York skyline through the window. "Because I'm done letting this slide." The seatbelt sign chimed, signaling their arrival. Julie's phone buzzed again, this time with a voicemail from David Harper, Horizon's CEO. His voice was polished, tinged with urgency. "Ms. Flores, I'm deeply sorry for your experience. We're investigating immediately. I'd like to discuss how we can resolve this, perhaps over a call when you're settled." Julie saved the message, her mind already calculating her next move. Harper's tone suggested damage control, but she wasn't interested in platitudes. She wanted accountability, and she'd make sure Horizon felt the weight of her demand. As the plane taxied to the gate, Julie gathered her belongings, her resolve as unyielding as the steel beneath her feet. The video she'd sent was more than evidence. It was a weapon, one that had already shifted the power dynamic. She stepped into the aisle, her gaze meeting Tiffany's for a fleeting moment. The flight attendant looked away, but Julie held her head high. This flight wasn't the end of her story. It was the beginning of a reckoning. The jetway at JFK Airport stretched before Julie Flores like a gauntlet, each step a deliberate stride toward justice. The October air was crisp, tinged with the metallic tang of jet fuel. As she emerged into the terminal, her phone still warm from the flurry of notifications. The video she'd sent mid-flight had ignited a firestorm online, with justice for Julie trending across tech circles and beyond. But Julie's focus wasn't on the digital uproar, it was on the confrontation awaiting her. She adjusted her gray suit jacket, her curls still impeccably pinned, and steeled herself for the battle ahead. As she approached the plane's exit, Tiffany stood at the door, her smile a brittle mask as she bid farewell to passengers. Julie stopped, her presence commanding the narrow space. "I need your full name and employee ID number," she said, her voice a blade of calm precision. Tiffany's eyes narrowed, her facade cracking. "For what? It was just a drink," she snapped, her tone dripping with disdain. Julie's gaze didn't waver. "It's about respect, which I didn't receive. I'll make sure Horizon knows exactly who was responsible." The words landed like a gavel, and Tiffany's face paled as Julie turned away, her heels echoing down the jetway. The encounter was brief but electric, a promise of accountability that lingered in the air. In her hotel room at the Waldorf Astoria, Julie set her roller bag against the wall and sank into a plush armchair, the New York skyline glittering beyond. The window. Her phone buzzed incessantly, messages from allies, retweets amplifying her video, and a missed call from David Harper, Horizon Airways CEO. She replayed his voicemail, his polished baritone laced with urgency. "Ms. Flores, I'm deeply sorry for your experience. We're investigating immediately. I'd like to discuss how we can resolve this, perhaps over a call when you're settled." The offer reeked of corporate damage control, and Julie's lips tightened. She wasn't here for apologies. She was here for change. She dialed Sarah Sanchez, her mentor and a Horizon board member, whose voice answered on the first ring. "Julie, I've seen the video. It's damning. I've already spoken to the board chair. They're convening an emergency meeting tomorrow." Sarah's tone was fierce, a reminder of why Julie trusted her counsel. "I'm not letting this slide, Sarah," Julie said, pacing the room. "This isn't just about me. It's about a system that lets people like Tiffany think they can get away with it." "You're right," Sarah replied. "Push hard, but be strategic. Harper will try to smooth this over. Don't let him." The call ended, and Julie's phone lit up again, this time David Harper himself. She took a deep breath, centering herself, and answered. "Mr. Harper, thank you for reaching out," she said, her voice smooth but unyielding. "Ms. Flores, I can't express how disturbed I am by what happened," Harper began, his words rehearsed. "This doesn't reflect Horizon's values. I'd like to make this right. Perhaps a seat on our board or an investment in next-gen analytics. We value your perspective." Julie's laugh was sharp, cutting through his offer like a knife. "I'm not interested in a board seat or your money, Mr. Harper. Those are bandages for a wound that needs surgery. I want a complete overhaul. Your employee training, mandatory bias education, accountability metrics, and independent oversight. Anything less, and I go public with everything I've documented." Harper's silence was telling, a pause heavy with calculation. "That's a significant request," he said finally. "We're already investigating, but a full overhaul takes time." "Then you'd better move quickly," Julie countered. "My video's already trending. By tomorrow it could be on every news outlet. I'm sure your shareholders would love the publicity." Her tone was velvet over steel, a skill honed in pitch meetings where she'd had to outmaneuver skeptics like Victor Marshall. Harper cleared his throat. "I understand. Let me discuss this with my team. Can we schedule a follow-up tomorrow?" "I'll be available at 10 a.m., Julie said, ending the call. She felt a surge of adrenaline, the thrill of wielding power, earned through years of navigating spaces that tried to diminish her. She opened her laptop, reviewing her pitch deck for the investor meeting, but her mind kept drifting to Harper's offer. A board seat was tempting, a shiny distraction, but it wouldn't fix the culture that allowed Tiffany's behavior to flourish. Flashbacks flickered through Julie's mind, not of the flight, but of her early days under Sarah's mentorship. At Stanford, Sarah had seen Julie's potential when others dismissed her as too young or too idealistic. Over late-night coffee, Sarah had shared her battles as a Latina in tech, teaching Julie to turn adversity into ammunition. "Never settle for crumbs when you deserve the table," Sarah had said. That lesson now guided Julie's refusal to accept Harper's placating gestures. She glanced at her phone, where notifications continued to pour in. Priya Patel had published a blog post titled "Discrimination at 35,000 Feet, a Tech CEO's Fight." For respect, linking to Julie's video. The comments were a mix of outrage and support, with tech insiders calling for Horizon to act. Michael Chen had texted, "Just gave my statement to Horizon's customer service team. You're not alone in this." Julie smiled, grateful for his solidarity, but she knew this fight was hers to lead. As she prepared for bed, Julie stood at the window, the city's lights a constellation of possibility. Tomorrow's investor meeting would test her ability to pivot from this crisis to her startup's vision. But the confrontation with Harper had lit a fire within her. She wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every person who'd been made to feel less than, every passenger who'd been skipped over, every professional whose worth was questioned because of their skin. She typed a quick message to Sarah. "Talked to Harper. Pushed for training overhaul. He's nervous. Ready to strategize tomorrow?" Sarah's reply was instant. "Proud of you. 8 a.m. call to prep. We'll make them sweat." Julie set her phone down, her resolve a quiet force. The skyline shimmered, indifferent to her battle, but Julie felt its energy fueling her. This wasn't just about a flight or a flute of champagne. It was about dismantling a system that thrived on exclusion. As she slipped under the hotel's crisp sheets, Julie's mind raced with plans. Harper's call tomorrow would be a chess match, and she was ready to play. The video had been her opening move, but the endgame was a Horizon Airways that treated every passenger with dignity, or faced the consequences of her wrath. She closed her eyes, the hum of the city lulling her into a restless sleep, dreaming of a world where respect wasn't a privilege, but a right. The Chicago skyline loomed through the tinted windows of Horizon Airways headquarters, a fortress of glass and steel that seemed to pulse with corporate secrets. In November 2023, Julie Flores sat in a sleek conference room, her tablet open to her pitch deck, but her mind was elsewhere. The investor meeting in New York had gone better than expected. Victor Marshall's newfound enthusiasm had secured a tentative commitment, but Julie's focus was on the storm she'd unleashed. The Yoter Justice for Julie hashtag had exploded, with her video now viewed thousands of times, each share a pebble in an avalanche of public outrage. Yet Julie knew exposure wasn't enough. She needed evidence to dismantle the system that shielded Tiffany's behavior. Her phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message from an unfamiliar name, Lisa Carter. The profile picture showed a woman in her 30s, her expression resolute. Ms. Flores, I used to work at Horizon under Tiffany. Your video. Hit home. I have information you need to know. Can we talk? Julie's pulse quickened. She typed a quick reply, arranging a call for that evening, then turned her attention to the investor across from her, a venture capitalist named Elena Torres. Your analytics platform is impressive, Julie, Elena said, her eyes sharp. But this Horizon thing, how are you balancing it with NextGen? Julie leaned forward, her voice steady. It's not a distraction, it's fuel. The same drive that built NextGen Analytics is pushing me to hold Horizon accountable. Both are about breaking barriers. Elena nodded, intrigued, and Julie sealed the meeting with a handshake, her confidence masking the weight of her dual battles. Back in her San Francisco office that evening, Julie dialed Lisa Carter. The former Horizon flight attendant's voice was steady but laced with urgency. I worked with Tiffany for 3 years, Lisa began. She's been doing this for ages, skipping minority passengers, making snide comments in the crew lounge. I've got emails, texts, even a group chat, where she called black passengers entitled, and worse. Julie's grip tightened on her phone, the pieces of a larger puzzle clicking into place. Can you share those? Julie asked, her tone calm but commanding. They're yours, Lisa replied. I should have spoken up sooner, but I was scared. Your video gave me courage. Within minutes, Julie's inbox pinged with files, screenshots of Tiffany's messages, one mocking a demanding black couple, another dismissing an Asian family's request as special treatment. The emails revealed complaints filed against Tiffany, buried by a manager named Richard Townsend, who dismissed them as misunderstandings without investigation. Julie forwarded the evidence to Sarah Sanchez, her mentor, who was already pressing Horizon's board for action. Sarah's response was swift. This is explosive. I'm presenting it to the board tomorrow. Townsend's in deep trouble. Julie felt a surge of vindication, but also a growing responsibility. Lisa's revelations weren't just about Tiffany. They exposed a culture of complicity that had festered unchecked. The next morning, Julie joined a video call with Sarah from her office, the San Francisco fog a gray curtain beyond her window. The board's rattled, Sarah said, her voice sharp with purpose. Lisa's evidence shows at least 5 complaints against Tiffany over 2 years, all swept under the rug by Townsend. He's a senior manager with friends in high places. Julie's jaw tightened. That explains why she felt untouchable. What's the board doing? They're launching a full investigation, Sarah replied. Cabin footage, passenger statements, and now Lisa's files. Harper's under pressure to act fast, especially with the media circling. Julie nodded, her mind racing. The investor meeting had bolstered NextGen's prospects, but this fight was personal, a chance to rewrite the rules for those who'd been silenced. In Chicago, the Horizon headquarters buzzed with tension. David Harper stood in his corner office, staring at the evidence on his desk. Lisa's screenshots, Julie's video, and statements from Michael Chen and 2 other passengers corroborating the discriminatory treatment. The board meeting had been brutal, with Sarah Sanchez presenting the case like a prosecutor. This isn't just one flight attendant, Sarah had argued. It's a systemic failure. Townsend's negligence enabled this. Harper knew the stakes. A public scandal could tank Horizon's stock and reputation. Julie, meanwhile, balanced her startup's demands with her advocacy. Between emails about NextGen's product roadmap, she reviewed Lisa's files, annotating key points for Sarah. The texts were particularly damning. Let 4B wait. They always want something for free, Tiffany had written about a black passenger. Julie's stomach churned, but she channeled her anger into strategy, drafting a memo outlining demands for Horizon: mandatory bias training, an independent complaint system, and transparency metrics. She sent it to Sarah, who promised to push it at the next board meeting. By late November, the investigation gained momentum. Lisa's courage had cracked open a vault of hidden truths, revealing a pattern of complaints against Tiffany, mostly from minority passengers dismissed by Townsend's cursory reviews. Julie met Lisa for coffee in San Francisco, the cafe's warmth a stark contrast to the cold reality they discussed. "I left Horizon because I couldn't stomach the culture," Lisa confessed, her eyes haunted. Tiffany wasn't the only, but she was the worst. Julie reached across the table, her voice gentle but firm. "You're doing the right thing now. This could change everything." Lisa nodded, her resolve mirroring Julie's own. Their conversation turned to the broader industry, airlines, tech firms, all riddled with the same blind spots. Julie's vision for Equity Innovate began to take shape, a seed planted by Lisa's bravery. As the week ended, Julie's phone lit up with a news alert. Horizon Airways suspends senior flight attendant amid discrimination allegations. The article cited her video and new evidence from a whistleblower, though Lisa's name was withheld. Social media erupted, with "Trash Justice for Julie" trending globally, fueled by Priya Patel's reporting. Julie scrolled through the comments, a mix of support and vitriol, but one stood out, a black pilot thanking her for speaking out. "You're making it easier for us," the pilot wrote. Julie's chest swelled with purpose. She wasn't just fighting for herself anymore. She stood at her office window, the Bay Bridge a faint outline in the fog. Lisa's revelations had exposed a rot deeper than one flight attendant, and Julie knew the battle was just beginning. Horizon's suspension of Tiffany was a start, but it wasn't enough. She texted Sarah, "Suspension's a step, but we need Townsend out and reforms locked in. Ready for the next board call?" Sarah's reply was immediate. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. We're turning up the heat." Julie set her phone down, the weight of her mission grounding her. The past had been unearthed, and now it was time to rebuild starting with Horizon's broken system. The San Francisco fog clung to Julie Flores' office windows like a shroud, muting the city's vibrancy as December 2023 settled in. Inside, Julie sat at her desk, the glow of her laptop casting sharp shadows across her face. The Justice for Julie movement had swelled into a tidal wave, with her video and Lisa Carter's revelations fueling headlines from tech blogs to national news. Yet Julie's focus was razor-sharp, honed on the seismic shifts unfolding at Horizon Airways. The reckoning she'd demanded was at hand, and she intended to shape its outcome. Her phone pinged with an email from Sarah Sanchez, her mentor and Horizon board member. "Tiffany terminated. Townsend fired. Board meeting today at 2 p.m. CST to discuss your training demands. Join us." Julie's lips curved into a grim smile. The suspensions had been a prelude. This was the crescendo. She opened a file on her laptop, a detailed proposal for Horizon's new training program. Mandatory anti-bias workshops, real-time complaint tracking, and quarterly audits by an independent firm. It was a blueprint for accountability, born from her own experience and Lisa's courage. In Chicago, Horizon's headquarters buzzed with a different energy, panic laced with urgency. David Harper, the CEO, stood before a wall of monitors displaying cabin footage from Flight 1423. The video, synced with Julie's recording, showed Tiffany's deliberate neglect, her smile reserved for white passengers while Julie was left empty-handed. Statements from Michael Chen and two others painted a damning picture, corroborated by Lisa's trove of texts and emails. Harper's jaw tightened as he faced the board, Sarah's piercing gaze a reminder of the stakes. "This is a systemic failure," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the room. "Ms. Flores' demands aren't optional, they're essential." Julie joined the meeting via video call, her image projected onto a screen in the boardroom. "Thank you for having me. she began, her tone steady but charged. Tiffany's actions weren't isolated. They thrived in a culture enabled by negligence, as Richard Townsend's dismissals of prior complaints prove. My proposal ensures this never happens again. Training that confronts bias head-on, systems that empower passengers to report, and metrics to hold you accountable. Her words were a gauntlet, daring Horizon to do more than react. Harper leaned forward, his face a mask of contrition. Ms. Flores, we've acted decisively. Tiffany and Townsend are gone. We're prepared to implement your training program, but we need time to scale it across our workforce. Julie's eyes narrowed. Time isn't the issue, Mr. Harper. Commitment is. I want independent oversight, not internal promises. Without it, I'll take this to court, and the public will decide your sincerity. Her threat hung heavy, amplified by the media storm outside. Priya Patel's latest article, Horizon's Hidden Bias, a Whistleblower's Revelations, had gone viral, and protests were forming outside Horizon's offices. A board member, an older man with a skeptical frown, spoke up. This sounds expensive. How do we justify the cost to shareholders? Julie's response was swift, her voice a blend of conviction and steel. The cost of inaction is higher. Lost trust, lawsuits, a tarnished brand. Investing in equity isn't a luxury, it's survival. Sarah nodded approvingly, and the room fell silent, the board cowed by Julie's clarity. By the meeting's end, Horizon committed to her proposal, with a caveat. An independent auditor would oversee implementation, reporting directly to the EDU board. Julie logged off, her heart pounding with a mix of triumph and caution. The victory was real, but she'd seen too many promises dissolve into half measures. She texted Sarah, "Good start. Let's hold their feet to the fire." Sarah's reply was a single emoji, a flame. Back in San Francisco, Julie's office was a hive of activity. Next-gen analytics was scaling up, with new contracts fueled by her recent investor wins, but her mind kept returning to Horizon. She called Lisa Carter, whose whistleblowing had been the key to unlocking Tiffany's past. "They fired her," Julie said, her voice warm with gratitude. "And Townsend, your evidence made that happen." Lisa's sigh was audible. "I'm glad, but it's bittersweet. I wish I'd acted sooner." Julie paused, her empathy stirring. She thought of the passengers who'd suffered in silence, their complaints buried by Townsend's indifference. "You acted when it mattered," she said. "That's enough." The conversation shifted to the broader implications. "This isn't just Horizon," Lisa said. "Every airline, every industry, it's the same story." Julie's mind sparked with possibility. Her fight had begun with a single flight, but it could ripple outward, reshaping systems beyond aviation. She jotted a note. Nonprofit idea. Equity Innovate. Industry-wide anti-bias reform. The seed was planted, but for now, she focused on Horizon's next steps. In Chicago, Harper faced a press conference, his tie slightly askew as he addressed a sea of cameras. Horizon Airways has terminated 2 employees involved in a recent incident of discriminatory conduct, he said, his voice measured. "We're implementing a comprehensive training program, guided by experts like Julie Flores, to ensure every passenger is treated with dignity." The words were carefully crafted, but Julie, watching the live stream from her office, saw through. The Polish. Harper was playing defense and she'd keep the pressure on. She met with her next-gen team that afternoon, delegating tasks to free up her time for advocacy. "We're growing fast," she told them, her energy infectious. "But I'm also fighting for something bigger. It's all connected, our work, our values." Her team nodded, inspired by her dual mission. As they dispersed, Julie's phone buzzed with a text from Michael Chen. "Heard about the firings, you're changing the game." She smiled, grateful for his steadfast support. That evening, Julie stood on her office balcony, the city lights piercing the fog. The firings were a milestone, but they didn't erase the sting of being overlooked, the weight of proving her worth. She thought of her father, who'd worked double shifts to fund her coding camps, and her mother, who'd taught her to speak truth to power. Their lessons anchored her now, guiding her toward a vision beyond personal vindication. She opened her laptop, drafting an email to Harper. "Mr. Harper, the board's commitment is a start, but I'll be watching. The auditor must have full access, and I expect a timeline for training rollout by next week." She hit send, her resolve unyielding. The reckoning wasn't just about Tiffany or Townsend. It was about a culture that had failed countless others. Julie's proposal was the first step, but she was already dreaming bigger, her mind sketching the outlines of Equity Innovate. As she closed her laptop, a news alert flashed. Horizon Airways faces backlash as protests grow. The public wasn't letting go, and neither was Julie. She stepped back inside, the fog now a metaphor for the uncertainty ahead. Horizon had bowed to her demands, but the real test was implementation. She was ready to fight for every inch of progress, knowing this was only the beginning. The San Francisco skyline shimmered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Next-Gen Analytics' headquarters, a beacon of ambition in the March 2024 dawn. Julie Flores stood at the heart of her startup's open-plan office, a converted warehouse where exposed brick met sleek tech. At 27, she was a force, her presence commanding even in a casual blazer and jeans. The victory over Horizon Airways, firings, a committed training overhaul, had solidified her resolve, but Julie's vision had outgrown a single airline. Today, she was launching Equity Innovate, a nonprofit to root out bias across tech and aviation, and the weight of that mission electrified the air. Julie's desk was a war room of organized chaos, legal pads scrawled with mission statements, a laptop open to funding proposals, and a whiteboard mapping workshop curricula. She'd funneled a chunk of NextGen's recent profits, bolstered by Victor Marshall's investment, into Equity Innovate's seed fund. The nonprofit's goal was audacious: to transform industries through data-driven diversity training and accountability systems. Julie knew the stakes. Failure meant letting down those who'd pinned their hopes on her, from Lisa Carter to the black pilot who'd thanked her online. She paced the office, her sneakers silent on the polished concrete as her team trickled in. "Morning, everyone," Julie called, her voice a blend of warmth and urgency. "Today's the day we make Equity Innovate real. Let's move." Her NextGen staff, a tight-knit crew of coders and analysts, had volunteered to moonlight on the nonprofit, their belief in her mission palpable. But Julie needed more than passion. She needed expertise. Her phone buzzed with a message from Michael Chen, the fintech entrepreneur who'd witnessed her ordeal on Flight 1423, interested in that advisory board role. "Let's talk." Julie's lips curved into a smile. Michael's industry clout and sharp insights made him a perfect fit. She replied, scheduling a call, then turned to her team. "We're building workshops that hit hard. Real scenarios, not corporate fluff," she said, sketching a timeline on the whiteboard. "Think flight attendants facing bias or tech execs ignoring diverse talent. We need data to back every module." By mid-morning, Julie was on a video call with Michael, his face framed by a Manhattan skyline. "I'm in," he said, his tone resolute. "Your vision for Equity Innovate, it's what the industry needs. I can bring aviation and tech contacts plus analytics for your training metrics." Julie nodded, her mind already slotting him into the nonprofit's framework. "You're our bridge, Michael," she said. "Your experience on that flight gives you credibility. We start with Horizon as a pilot client, then scale." The call ended, and Julie dove into a meeting with her curriculum designer, Aisha Khan, a diversity consultant with a knack for turning theory into practice. "We're not just teaching empathy," Julie insisted, her hands animated. "We're giving tools: bystander intervention, bias recognition, escalation protocols. Horizon's crew needs to know how to act when they see what I saw." Aisha scribbled notes, her enthusiasm mirroring Julie's. "Let's use your story as a case study," Aisha suggested, anonymized but powerful. Julie agreed, her resolve deepening. Outside, the city buzzed, but Julie's office was a cocoon of purpose. She reviewed funding proposals, securing a grant from a tech philanthropy group impressed by her Horizon coup. Victor Marshall's investment, a $500,000 pledge, arrived with a note. "For the change you're driving, Julie." She felt a twinge of irony. His support stemmed from guilt, but she'd use it to fuel her mission. Every dollar was a brick in Equity Innovate's foundation, and Julie was building fast. By afternoon, she was back on the phone, this time with Sarah Sanchez, whose boardroom battles at Horizon had paved the way for Julie's reforms. "Horizon signed on for our pilot workshop," Sarah said, her voice crackling with pride. "They're nervous but committed. Your name carries weight now." Julie leaned back, her chair creaking. "Good, but we need their data. Incident reports, employee feedback. If they're serious, they'll open their books." Sarah chuckled. "You're relentless. I'll push for it. What's next for Equity Innovate?" Julie shared her vision. Workshops for tech firms, airlines, even hotels, each tailored with analytics to track progress. "It's not just training," she said, "it's a movement." Sarah's silence was approving, a mentor's nod across the miles. As evening fell, Julie hosted a brainstorming session with her team, pizza boxes littering the conference table. "We're launching our first workshop in May," she announced, her energy infectious. "Horizon's crew will be our test case, but I want tech firms next." Ideas? Her lead developer, Raj, suggested gamified training modules, while Aisha proposed peer-led discussions. Julie absorbed every idea, her mind weaving them into a cohesive plan. "This is how we scale," she said, her eyes alight. "One industry at a time." Later, alone in her office, Julie stood at the window, the Golden Gate Bridge a faint silhouette in the dusk. The day's momentum had been exhilarating, but doubt crept in. Could Equity Innovate live up to its promise? She thought of her parents, her father's late-night lessons on resilience, her mother's fierce advocacy for fairness. Their legacy steadied her, reminding her why she'd started this fight. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Tech journalist uncovers discrimination at major airlines. Priya Patel's latest exposé cited cases similar to Julie's, from ignored passengers to suppressed complaints. Julie's heart raced. This was bigger than Horizon. She texted Priya, "Let's talk symposium. We need to bring industries together." Priya's reply was instant. "I'm in. Name the date." Julie smiled, the seed of a multi-industry event taking root. She sat at her desk, drafting a mission statement for Equity Innovate, to forge equitable systems through education, data, and accountability. The words felt alive, a manifesto born from her ordeal. She thought of Michael, stepping up as an ally, Aisha, crafting transformative curricula, Sarah, wielding boardroom influence. Together, they were building something unstoppable. As midnight approached, Julie locked her office, the city quiet beyond the glass. Equity Innovate was no longer a dream. It was a reality, its first workshop looming. She stepped into the cool night, her breath visible in the air. The fight had begun on a plane, but it was growing into a force that could reshape industries. Julie's resolve was aflame, unquenched by doubt, ready to ignite the next phase of her mission. The New York Conference Center pulsed with anticipation, its glass atrium catching the September 2024 sunlight like a prism. Julie Flores stood at the edge of the stage, her tailored emerald blazer a vibrant contrast to the neutral tones of the venue. At 27, she was no longer just the CEO of Next Gen Analytics. She was the architect of Equity Innovate, a nonprofit now, commanding the attention of industry titans. Today's symposium, the first of its kind, was her crucible, a platform to showcase her vision for dismantling bias in tech and aviation. The air crackled with possibility, but Julie felt the weight of every gaze in the room. The auditorium buzzed as executives, activists, and journalists filled the seats, their murmurs a low hum beneath the clink of coffee cups. Julie adjusted, her earpiece, her curls swept into a low bun that exuded authority. Months of preparation had led to this. Workshops piloted with Horizon Airways, data analytics honed with Michael Chen's expertise, and a curriculum crafted with Aisha Khan's precision. But the symposium was more than a showcase. It was a challenge to an industry reluctant to change, and Julie was ready to ignite a reckoning. She stepped to the podium, her presence silencing the crowd. "Good morning," she began, her voice clear and commanding, resonating through the speakers. "We're here because equity isn't a buzzword. It's a necessity. 2 years ago, I was denied service on a flight because of my skin color. That moment sparked Equity Innovate, and today we're proving that change is not only possible but profitable." Her words landed with force, her eyes sweeping the room, catching nods from Sarah Sanchez, seated in the front row, her mentors. Pride, a quiet anchor. The morning session unveiled Horizon's revamped training program, a model Julie had co-developed. She introduced Aisha, who projected data onto a massive screen. A 30% drop in passenger complaints since implementation, a 15% rise in employee retention among minority staff. "This isn't theory," Aisha said, her voice steady. "It's results, real people, real change." Julie watched the audience, noting the attentive CEO of a rival airline, her pen flying across her notebook, and the skeptical tech mogul, his arms crossed but eyes locked on the data. The centerpiece was a panel led by Michael Chen, his fintech Polish tempered by raw conviction. "Bystander intervention isn't about heroics," he said, his voice carrying the weight of their shared experience on Flight 1423. "It's about acting when you see bias, whether it's a flight attendant skipping a passenger or a boardroom, dismissing a voice." He shared their story, anonymized but vivid, a passenger ignored, a moment he'd chosen to challenge. Julie's heart swelled as attendees leaned forward, their notepads filling with insights. Michael's panelists, a union rep and a diversity officer, offered practical tools from de-escalation scripts to anonymous reporting apps. But the symposium wasn't without friction. During the Q&A, a grizzled airline executive, his suit, a testament to decades in the industry, stood. "These programs sound noble, Ms. Flores, but they're disruptive. How do you expect us to retrain thousands without chaos?" His tone dripped with doubt, a gauntlet thrown. Julie stepped forward, her gaze unflinching. "Chaos is what happens when you ignore bias," she countered, her words sharp yet measured. "Your crews already face disruption, passenger complaints, lawsuits, PR disasters. Our program prevents that, with data to prove it." The room buzzed, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. She'd met his challenge head-on, and the tide was turning. Lunch was a whirlwind of networking, with Julie navigating a sea of handshakes and business cards. A tech startup founder praised her vision, while a hotel chain VP hinted at a partnership. But not all were allies. A group of airline execs huddled in a corner, their whispers skeptical, their glances wary. Julie caught Sarah's eye across the room, her mentor's nod a reminder to stay focused. "You're shaking them up," Sarah mouthed, her smile fierce. Julie returned it, her resolve a quiet fire. The afternoon session dove deeper, with Julie presenting Equity Innovate's scalable model, workshops tailored for different sectors, backed by analytics to track progress. She shared a case study from Horizon, where a crew member had used their training to intervene during a biased service incident, earning passenger praise. "This is what change looks like," Julie said, her voice rising with passion. "Not policies on paper, but actions in the moment." The audience applauded, the sound a wave that buoyed her spirit, but resistance lingered. A tech CEO, his Silicon Valley swagger unmistakable, questioned the cost. "Diversity training's expensive, Julie. Why not focus on innovation instead?" Her response was swift, her tone a blend of conviction and steel. "Bias stifles innovation. When you exclude voices, you lose ideas. Our data shows that inclusive teams outperform others by 20%. You can't afford not to do this." The CEO sat back, chastened, and Julie felt a thrill of victory. She was rewriting the narrative, one skeptic at a time. As the symposium neared its close, a young black pilot approached the mic, her Horizon uniform crisp. "Ms. Flores, I've faced what you did. Ignored, dismissed, "Underestimated," she said, her voice trembling but strong. "Your work made my promotion possible. Thank you." The room erupted in applause and Julie's eyes stung. This was why she fought, not just for herself, but for those who'd come after. She thanked the pilot, her voice thick with emotion, and promised to keep pushing. The final moments were electric. Julie closed with a call to action. Join us, adopt our protocols, share your data, and be accountable. Equity isn't a destination. It's a journey we take together. The audience rose, their ovation a thunderous affirmation. Backstage, Sarah embraced her. "You did it," Sarah said, her voice warm. "They're listening." But Julie knew the real work was just beginning. Some executives had committed to Equity Innovate's protocols, but others remained hesitant, their promises vague. She met Michael and Aisha for a debrief, their energy mirroring her own. "We got traction," Michael said, "but we need to follow up. Those holdouts won't budge without pressure." Julie nodded, already planning a legal strategy to enforce. Change, a seed planted by the pilot's story. As she left the venue, the Manhattan dusk painted the sky in hues of amber. Julie's phone buzzed with a text from Priya Patel. "Symposium's trending. You're a force." She smiled, but her mind was on the pilot, her words a reminder of the stakes. The symposium had been a triumph, but it was also a challenge, a gauntlet thrown to an industry that could no longer hide. Julie stepped into a waiting car, her resolve a flame that burned brighter than ever, ready to light the path to a more equitable future. The San Francisco fog curled around the high-rise office of Next Gen Analytics, a ghostly veil that mirrored the uncertainty of January 2025. Julie Flores stood in a sleek conference room, her emerald blazer swapped for a charcoal suit that radiated authority. The Equity Innovate Symposium had galvanized industries, but the young black pilot's story, a raw echo of Julie's own experience, had ignited a new fire within her. Words and workshops weren't enough. Systemic change demanded force, and Julie was ready to wield the law as her weapon. Today, she was meeting with legal allies to launch a class action lawsuit that could reshape aviation's approach to equity. Papers littered the table, depositions, airline policies, and data from Equity Innovate's workshops. Julie's gaze swept over them, her mind a chessboard of strategy. The pilot's testimony had revealed a pattern. Countless passengers, mostly minorities, had faced discrimination on flights, their complaints buried or ignored. Julie had partnered with Kessler & Lee, a law firm known for tackling corporate giants, to file a class action suit against Horizon Airways and 3 other carriers. The goal: mandated anti-bias training, compensation for victims, and structural reforms. She felt the weight of representing those silenced voices, a responsibility that steadied her resolve. The door swung open, and Rachel Kessler, the firm's lead attorney, entered with a brisk nod. Her sharp eyes met Julie's. "We've got a strong case," Rachel said, spreading out a timeline. "Your video, Lisa Carter's evidence, and now 47 plaintiffs, passengers with documented incidents. Horizon's settlement talks are heating. Up, but the others are digging in." Julie leaned forward, her fingers tracing the timeline. "Horizon's the key," she said, her voice low but firm. "If they fold, the rest will follow. What's their offer?" Rachel slid a document across the table. Quarterly audits by Equity Innovate, a $2 million compensation fund, and training rolled out to all staff by June. They want a non-disclosure clause. Julie's laugh was sharp, cutting through the room's sterile air. "No NDAs, transparencies, non-negotiable. Push for public reporting of audit results." Rachel nodded, her pen scribbling notes. Julie's clarity was a blade, honed by months of battling corporate inertia. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to the seismic shift Julie was orchestrating. She thought of the pilot, now a plaintiff, whose courage had mirrored her own. Empathy fueled Julie's drive. She wasn't just fighting for policy, but for people, each with stories of indignity. She opened her laptop, reviewing plaintiff statements. A Latino businessman was ignored on a red eye. An Indian family was skipped during service. Each account tightened her resolve, a mosaic of injustice she'd transform into justice. A call from Sarah Sanchez interrupted her focus. "Horizon's board is nervous," Sarah said, her voice crackling with urgency from Chicago. "Your lawsuit's making waves. They're ready to settle, but they're scared of the precedent." Julie paced, her heels clicking against the hardwood. "Good. Let them sweat. We're not settling for half measures. The audits have to be binding, and the fund needs to be accessible." Sarah's chuckle was approving. "You're a force, Julie. I'll keep the pressure on." The meeting resumed, with Rachel outlining the strategy. "We file next week unless Horizon signs by Friday," she said. "The other airlines will fight, but Horizon's settlement could force their hand." Julie nodded, her mind racing. She'd balanced NextGen's growth, new contracts, a soaring valuation with this fight. But the lawsuit was personal. It was about the empty champagne flute, the pilot's sidelined dreams, the weight of being seen as less than. By afternoon, Julie was in Chicago, meeting Horizon's legal team in a glass-walled office overlooking Lake Michigan. David Harper sat across from her, his polished demeanor fraying at the edges. "Ms. Flores, we're offering everything you asked," he said, sliding a revised settlement across the table. "Audits, training, the fund, no NDA. Can we end this now?" Julie scanned the document, her gaze unrelenting. "Almost," she said, her voice a quiet storm. "Add a clause for annual public reports on training outcomes. No hiding." Harper hesitated, then nodded, his signature sealing the deal. The settlement was a triumph, but Julie's work wasn't done. She flew back to San Francisco, her mind on the other airlines. Kessler and Lee would press forward, but Horizon's capitulation was a lever. She'd use it to pry open the industry. At NextGen's office, she briefed her team, their faces alight with pride. "This is just the start," Julie said, her energy infectious. "Equity Innovate will monitor Horizon's progress, and we're expanding our legal arm to support more plaintiffs." Her lead developer, Raj, grinned. "You're rewriting the rules, boss." That evening, Julie stood on her office balcony, the city's lights piercing the dusk. The settlement news had broken, with Priya Patel's headline, "Horizon Settles." Landmark discrimination suit, trending online. Comments praised Julie's tenacity, but she knew the real test was implementation. Horizon's reforms were a blueprint, but the industry's resistance lingered, a shadow she'd chase with legal might. Her phone buzzed with a text from Michael Chen. "Settlement's huge. Symposium's legacy grows." Julie smiled, grateful for his alliance. But another message caught her eye from the Tech for Change Awards Committee. "We'd be honored to have you speak at our May Gala." The invitation was a beacon, a chance to amplify her mission. She replied, accepting, her mind already, crafting a speech that would echo beyond the ballroom. As she locked her office, Julie felt the pilot's story in her bones, a reminder that every victory was for those who'd endured in silence. The lawsuit had flexed her legal muscle, but the fight was far from over. Tiffany, now a footnote, had faded into obscurity, her career a casualty of her own bias. Julie, however, was ascendant, her path lit by the settlement's promise. She stepped into the night, the fog a challenge she'd conquer, one case at a time. The grand ballroom of New York's Plaza Hotel glowed under crystal chandeliers, a constellation of light that mirrored the electric anticipation of the Tech for Change Awards on May 27, 2025. Julie Flores stood backstage, her navy gown flowing like midnight, its elegance a quiet defiance against the indignities that had sparked her journey. The class-action lawsuit settlement with Horizon Airways had reshaped aviation, but tonight, Julie was here to cement her legacy as a catalyst for equity across industries. Her breath steadied as she gripped the podium's edge, ready to address a room of innovators, activists, and dreamers who'd gathered to honor her. The MC's voice boomed, introducing Julie as a visionary who turned a moment of injustice into a movement. The crowd rose, their applause a thunderous wave that washed over her as she stepped into the spotlight. Julie's gaze swept the audience, Tech CEOs, policymakers, and the young black pilot whose story had fueled her legal fight. "Thank you," she began, her voice resonant, cutting through the hush. 2 years ago, I was denied a glass of champagne on a flight not because it ran out, but because of my skin. Tonight we celebrate not my pain, but the progress we've built from it. She spoke of Equity Innovate, now partnered with 10 major companies whose workshops reduce bias incidents by 25% in pilot programs. Julie's words painted a vivid picture. Flight crews trained to intervene, tech teams empowered to amplify. Diverse voices. "This isn't about blame," she said, her tone fierce yet hopeful. "It's about responsibility, to see injustice, to act, to build systems where dignity is universal." The audience leaned in, captivated by her blend of data and passion, her story a beacon for change. A flashback flickered through Julie's mind, not of the flight, but of her parents' kitchen, where her mother's laughter and her father's quiet wisdom had taught her to stand tall. Those lessons anchored her now, guiding her to honor the unsung victims of bias. She paused, her eyes finding Victor Marshall in the crowd. The investor, once dismissive, now rose to applaud, his public statement earlier crediting Julie for reshaping his perspective. "I was wrong about her," he'd said, a confession that echoed through the tech world. Julie nodded subtly, acknowledging his growth, but her focus remained on the future. The pilot, First Officer Amara Tate, approached the stage, her Horizon uniform a symbol of progress. "Ms. Flores," Amara said, her voice steady, "your fight opened doors for me. I fly international routes now because you showed us what's possible." The room erupted again, and Julie clasped Amara's hand, her heart swelling. "This is your victory, too," she whispered, the moment a bridge between their shared struggles. Amara's presence was proof that Julie's work had ripples, touching lives beyond policy papers. As the speech neared its close, Julie raised a champagne flute, its bubbles catching the light, a deliberate nod to the incident that had sparked her crusade. "To a future where every seat, every voice, every dream is honored," she declared, her voice soaring. "Not because of laws or awards, but because we've chosen humanity over hierarchy." The toast sealed her message, the clink of glasses, a chorus of commitment. The ovation was deafening, a testament to her impact. Backstage, Sarah Sanchez embraced her, her mentor's eyes gleaming with pride. "You've changed the game, Julie," Sarah said, her voice thick. "This room will never be the same." Julie smiled, but her mind was already racing to Equity Innovate's next phase. Legal clinics for bias victims, global training expansions. The awards gala was a milestone, not a finish line. Michael Chen joined them, his grin wide. "Your speech lit a fire," he said. "3 CEOs just asked about our protocols. We're scaling faster than I thought." Julie nodded, her resolve unshaken. The symposium had been the spark, the lawsuit the hammer. Now her words were the forge, shaping a new era. She thought of Tiffany, whose career had crumbled under the weight of her prejudice, a cautionary tale for those who resisted change. The gala's after-party buzzed with energy, but Julie slipped onto a balcony, the Manhattan skyline a tapestry of ambition. She sipped her champagne, its taste bittersweet, a reminder of what she'd overcome. Priya Patel's latest article, Julie Flores, The Face of Equity, had gone live, detailing Equity Innovate's impact. Airlines adopting transparent reporting, tech firms boosting minority hires. Yet Julie knew progress was fragile, a garden needing constant care. Amara found her, her pilot's cap tucked under her arm. "I meant what I said," Amara told her, her voice earnest. "You made me believe I could fly higher." Julie's throat tightened. "Keep flying, Amara," she said. "You're why I do this." The exchange was a quiet vow, a promise to keep fighting for those still climbing. As the night wound down, Julie rejoined the crowd, accepting the tech for change. Ward, a sleek glass sculpture that felt light compared to her mission's weight. She posed for photos, her smile radiant but her mind on tomorrow. Equity Innovate's next board meeting loomed, with plans to lobby for federal bias reporting standards. The fight was evolving, and Julie was its heartbeat. She stepped into the cool night, the plaza's grandeur fading behind her. A text from Sarah arrived. "You owned that stage. Ready for the next battle?" Julie's fingers danced across her phone. Always. The city pulsed around her, a canvas of possibility. Her journey had begun with a denied drink, but it had grown into a movement that touched boardrooms, cockpits, and beyond. Julie walked toward her car, the champagne's memory a spark that had ignited an era of equity, one she'd nurture, fiercely, into the future. Thank you for joining us on this powerful journey with Julie Flores, a story of resilience, justice, and transformative change. We hope her fight for equity has inspired you as much as it has us. What moved you most about Julie's story? How do you see her legacy shaping the future? Share your thoughts with us. We'd love to hear your reflections. Your voice matters. This ongoing conversation about fairness and inclusion. A heartfelt thank you for listening, and we can't wait to connect with you again for more stories that spark hope and action. Until next time, keep pushing for a better world.